Joining us from Beijing with a look at next week's 19th Party Congress is Qingduo Xu, a political analyst with China Radio International. So before we look ahead, let's look back at the 18th Party Congress. Corruption, the economy, the environment were major issues then. How would you describe the past 5 years?
Well, the past 5 years has been very impressive, let's say, in terms of the anti-corruption campaign. For example, at the very beginning, a lot of people would say that's just, more like a political show. It's not serious. And over the past 5 years, people have realized that, the determination and also this intensity and also how inclusive it is. It includes like high-level officials, senior officials, so-called tigers, and also low-ranking officials, so-called flies, and also those, of course, fleeing, escaping China, so-called fugitives in other countries. Are also some of them are brought back to China. So this is very serious. That is aiming to build a clean party, a clean government. And also, if you look at the economic development, obviously China has been very successful in transforming the economy, the growth model, from relying heavily on export and investment to more on consumption and tertiary industries. And also innovation is another goal of President Xi Jinping at the very beginning of his administration, let's say. So innovation has been thriving in terms of building a cashless society, and also say quantum computing and other areas. China has been, in some areas, China has been leading the world. So overall, I think it's a very successful 5 years.
So for the 19th Party Congress, it's continuing to build a prosperous China and also an adjustment to the Constitution. What does that mean, and what's at stake here?
Well, this is more like a practice by the party that is, every few years, and then you have a new administration. They have some new experience in managing the country, in governing the country, like economic and social development. Then you have some successful experiences. You have new approaches and new ideas. And so it is also the case with President Xi Jinping. He has his own priorities. He has his own ambitious plan to develop this nation. We talked about the 2 centenary goals. So in order to achieve those goals, you need the party members, the party with like 89 million members, to have a common understanding, and also to have a unifying, so-called unifying the thoughts, to have a consensus on where we are now and where we want to go and how to get there. So this is very important. The approaches and ideas will be incorporated in the Constitution. So that's mostly the amendments.
And you mentioned this, we also heard this in the story, 2020, a key and important year for China. It is less than 3 years away. Will China's intended goals be met by then?
That's most analysts would say that's almost for sure. The key part of achieving that goal is really poverty alleviation. So right now it's about like 40 million people left behind, and the goal is to basically to lift 10 million people out of poverty every year from 2012 to 2020, 21. And of course, another 20 million will be included in the social welfare policies. So that's why President Xi proposed his so-called targeted poverty alleviation efforts, because the remaining poverty areas, they have their own unique problems. You have to study their situation, their conditions, and then you propose say precise measures to deal with their conditions, their problems, and help them get out of poverty. Of course, overall, the poverty alleviation efforts over the past 40 years, they say like 700 million people have been out of poverty. That's something unprecedented in human history.